Who do you love? Who do you love? A lot of people don't ask that question. A lot of people completely avoid that question. Do you love your family? Do you love yourself? Do you love your society? Do you love the people around you? Do you love the work that you do? Do you love life? Stephen Molyneux, the philosopher, contemporary philosopher, says that love is an involuntary response to virtue. But of course, you'll only have that response if you yourself are virtuous. And it makes me kind of look at the fact that that's one way that you know the value of not only the people around you, but also the society. What do you value? What do the people around you value? What does the society you live in value? And is it virtuous? I know my own qualities: empathy, gentleness, love, honesty, integrity, competence. Not in everything. I mean, obviously, I'm not all-knowing. Obviously, nobody is. Right? People have varying level degrees of competence and skill at various things. And we can either improve by focusing on our strengths, 80% on our strengths and 20% on our weakness. Or we can focus 80% on our weakness and decide to feel bad about those weaknesses. And one of the interesting things is that you need to be around people who value what you value and love what you love. And it's interesting because the past couple of weeks I'm really... It's interesting because it's like, to be a little bit esoteric, it's like the universe is whispering to me the truth of who I am and the truth of who I can be. Our society that we live in, most people that live in the society, are pretty dead inside. Pretty dead. I'm not saying they're bad. But then again, some aspects of society is very bad. We know that government is bad. We know that most of the laws in the books are bad. We know that a lot of religious traditions that we have in the world are bad. We know that, it all boils down to virtue. What is virtue? And you have to ask yourself, well, if I love life, and I live my life, and I choose to be selfish, and do what I can to live up to my highest standard for myself, is that good? Yes, obviously. Because survival of the individual is really the goal of the individual. Not of the society necessarily. The society likes to sacrifice people. And you see this in government and religion and corporations. It's always about the individual sacrificing themselves for, they call it the common good, or the public, or, some other collectivist phrase, which really doesn't mean anything. And the big lie to the individual is that you're not good enough, that you're bad, that you're broken, that you're born broken, that you're born wrong, that you are broken and you need to be fixed. You know, children do not fit well into society. Children are like, you know, as close to nature as you can get. And we have a society that destroys them. We have a society that kills off their empathy, kills off their love of life, kills off their virtue, kills off everything. You know, just because there's movement within a society doesn't mean the society is healthy. You know, a cancerous cell can have rapid growth. It doesn't mean it's healthy. You know, movement doesn't even mean that something's alive. You know, the wind can blow a flag, right? We see the flag move in the wind. We don't say, oh, the flag is alive. No. No, of course not. The wind's not alive either. The society is not alive. Most of the people walking around are pretty much zombies. They're asleep. And how does one bring them back to life? You go deep, deep into who they are, at their core of who they are. You start showing them who they are. And yeah, they have to heal the traumas that they've suffered within a society that does not value children. It does not value individuality or creativity. It values conformity and obedience. I've never been a conformist. I've never been obedient. People say, oh, he's a big kid. Yeah, I kind of am in some ways. Now, if I had, you know, money, power, beauty, I'd probably lead a very different life and still be a big kid. And not that any of those three things are bad. They're just tools. I can use, you know, a tool. I can use a hammer to pound in a nail and build a house, or I can use it to hit someone. It's just a tool. I can use money to, you know, create a business that helps somebody, or I can, you know, use money to, you know, pay off some politician to write a law that hurts people. It's just about how you use the tools. And a lot of times people use the tools of empathy and love against others by seeing it as an excuse to hurt them. And the people who hurt me, I don't have any use for them. I'm simply going to call them what they are and go on to do better things, more productive things, more things that I enjoy. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to have difficulties in my life. I mean, clearly, it might be a difficult road to get out of this situation that I'm in, but if I hold fast to who I truly am, then I can do it. You know, and it's been difficult. I mean, I've done things like I've had jobs at, you know, convenience stores and whatnot, and really good at those jobs. But, you know, some of the people, they were not virtuous. You know, when you're happy and you're smiling and you're having a good time and you're humming along getting stuff done, and somebody who hates their life sees that, man, you know, it's like, what happens is your happiness makes their misery all the more miserable. because then they have something to compare it to. You know, misery loves company, and miserable people want others to be miserable. They don't want to take joy in other people's happiness. And I have every right to be happy. I have every right to be joyous with my own life, about my own life. And I know that I'm not where I want to be right now. But I know, deep down, that that I can do it. Because a lot of what society tells you, society says, in religion too, also, and corporations to some degree, say you have to rely on other people. You can't do it yourself. You need to go outside, everywhere else for information and knowledge and, the way things are and how to do it and how to be and everything else. And even if it doesn't make sense, it's kind of an Alice in Wonderland mentality, right? It's that faith and force dichotomy. It's like you can serve one master or you can serve two, but we prefer you serve two, and that way you keep having to flip between, faith and force, right? Government and religion, right? And then you, to a great degree, have to, within that context of society, conform or it will try to kill you. And if somebody who has no virtue is trying to hurt you, it tends to be a pretty good sign that you have virtue of some degree, to some degree. Not always, but it's a pretty good indicator. Loyalty is another big quality that I attach to. I want people to be loyal to me. But here's the hard part about this is that I have to be loyal to myself. And that's where most people make the mistake. Is they violate their own standards, they violate their own ethics, they violate who they are, and it's like they cut bits and pieces of themselves off. They say, well, this person wants me to be this, so I'm going to cut this part of myself off. This person wants me to be that, I'm going to cut this other part of myself off. And pretty soon, they're just a shell of a human being, and they're just going through the motions. And they're not really going anywhere. They're on a treadmill going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. There's a lot of action, a lot of movement, but they're not getting anywhere. Even when I was a little kid, I wanted to help people. I wanted to make society better. I remember when I ran for city council that one time. It was because I saw the problems, and I said, here's some simple solutions. What I didn't realize was they didn't want solutions. The people in power sure as hell didn't want solutions. Everything was going according to plan. And yeah, they said one thing, but their intention was quite another. Oh, we're trying to help this person. Let's keep stabbing the knife in. It's like, no, you're hurting. You need to. Oh, we're trying to help, and we're trying. You're trying to keep us from, plunging the knife into their back. Well, you're a bad person because we're so compassionate and wonderful, and meanwhile their victim is bleeding all over the floor, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I can help. I can, And see, that's another thing that gets me with this society is everybody seems to be playing dumb. You know, it's like we're gonna say 2 plus 2 is 5 because we don't want the shit knocked out of us. Or we're gonna say 2 plus 2 is 5 so we don't burn in hell for eternity. Or we're gonna say 2 plus 2 is 5 so we don't have the police bust down our door at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning and put us in a cage just because you said something they didn't like. So much fear. Children are naturally courageous. They have no fear. Everything is just a grand adventure. Yeah, sometimes they get hurt, but they learn from it. And they go find something else to do. They continue, it's like children. It's like they'll cry, they'll get upset, and then 5 minutes later, they're back to being happy, focused on something else. Not adults. As adults, we're taught suffering is, a virtue. And we're told that suffering is the way it is. And yeah, I know there's suffering in society. I mean, sometimes people do what they don't want to do and they suffer, but it's like, exercising when you first start out isn't fun. It feels like suffering, but then, you get over it. But there's also things like needless suffering. And most people, they make suffering a virtue. I remember when I was in that film, we had to film at a Catholic church. And they had this, right when you walked in, they had this, gold painted figure. It was in a glass case, but it was Jesus on the cross. And it was in gold paint, and it was so detailed. I mean, I should have took a picture of it, because it was literally the creepiest thing that I ever saw. And it was like the glorification of suffering. I mean, think about that. People don't focus on, whether you believe in the myth or not, or the religion or whatever, but it's like they focus on his death and not his rebirth. I mean, it's just amazing to me. They don't look at death as just this transition and focus on his awakening out of the tomb and his coming to all his friends and saying, here I am. They focus on the death. Well, see, they focus on the death because that makes people afraid. Because people fear death. And if you focus on death, if you focus on fear, if you focus on suffering, you can keep people pretty bound down. You can get them to conform, you can get them to obey, because you threaten them with death, you threaten them with suffering, you threaten them. You constantly threaten them with jail or hell or fines or, whatever you want to, just this constant, continual suffering. The church and the state, they're very good about the continuation of suffering. You get a traffic ticket, if you're poor, it will go on for months, sometimes years, and it's like there's no end to it. And then the church says, well, you'd better do this, you're going to burn in hell for eternity. It's like, it's just this constant focus on suffering and death. And the awakening, the being reborn, the discovery of who you are as an individual, as a divine being, as a spiritual being in a physical body, as an incredible mind that can create and grow and learn and, make something in this world that will stand the test of time. All that just gets pushed to the side. And a great degree of it is because the people in power, they don't want the competition. If you're a sadist, what do you want to do? You want to make sure that nobody challenges you, nobody questions you. So you say that you make it so that you're the one who has all the money and power and etc. And then you make everybody else grovel for crumbs. You turn everybody into cattle. It's what the financial system has done to the planet. The international bankers, over half the world's wealth. I think the number's higher now. I'm trying to think exactly what it is. I read an article, it's like the vast majority of the planet's wealth is owned by a handful of people. I think I made a video about it a while back, I think. It's like, but yeah, that money, pretty much, it's just numbers on computer screens. It's all digits. And we tie ourselves to these digits, these things that don't even really exist in the real world. I have a cup. I can trade this for, say, if I want to barter with something, but it's physical, it's real. Something like a debt, a debt to a corporation, or a debt to society, or a debt to religion, or whatever. It's like, all those are concepts. They have no power other than, if other people believe in those concepts, obviously, they're going to get violent. If people think that it's virtuous to violently assault you because you have a debt to society, according to them, it's a dangerous situation, obviously. And it's all this BS of, the world doesn't owe you a living. Well, if the world doesn't owe me a living, why do I owe the world a living? They don't want to think about that, because all they've ever been taught as children is that they're broken and that they're bad and that they need to make up for it, and the guilt and the fear and the suffering and the pain and the fear and the worship of death. It's sickening. And to love myself, to show loyalty to my own soul, to my own mind, to my own heart, to show real love to myself for my virtues. I have to go towards something. The creation of life. The growth and expansion of my own mind and my own heart and my own spirit. And part of that is taking a lot better care of myself. Showing self-love. Showing love, being selfish. I feel something just incredibly powerful within me. And it's time I start honoring that. Have a great day, everybody.